everyone, and happy Aloha Friday. You are watching the Romancing Hawaii show on Hawaii Wellness Network. My name is Kelly Vaughn, and my soulmate and partner in crime,
Hans Bruce.
And our lovely guest today, Margaret Gray, an astrologer here in Hawaii. Thank you so much for being on our show, Margaret.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
And today we're excited to hear more about astrology for individuals, couples, and the different benefits of having astrology readings. And also later in the show, Margaret is going to give us a little sneak peek of our couples chart for astrology. So why don't we begin by, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, mainly, I guess, the type of astrology that you focus on?
Sure. I do psychological astrology rather than predictive astrology. And what I mean by that is really psychological, the old term, which is really the study of the soul, rather than focusing on what's going to happen, in a week's time, whatever. And by that I mean that I use the chart as a map, really. It's a map of our potential. So it's the seeding moment of when we came into an incarnation and contains the potential of what we can develop. Of course, the chart doesn't actually describe what we do with that. That's always free will and choice and depends on our levels of consciousness and awareness.
Oh wow, that's awesome. How did you, what are the main benefits of people, what can people expect when they come in for a reading?
Well, people come for lots of reasons, mainly really to help get some more understanding about themselves. That's really the focus and really why we're here. All of us want to know, what are we doing on this planet? What's going to bring me meaning? What's going to bring me happiness? And mainly what's going to bring me fulfillment. And the chart is a map that people can use in terms of really giving a lot of information about how do I communicate? What is my style of communication? What is my drive? What is the sense of meaning for me? So it's mainly about self-understanding and really discovering, what talents, what resources do we have. It's amazing how most of us really are not fully aware of the amazing talents and resources we actually have, and sometimes we don't get to use them. So it's information.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. I could always use more information what my potentials are. I'm excited.
I am too.
This sounds complex.
I know, it really does. Looks very interesting.
Well, it's really a symbolic language, so it's just like any language. There's a lot of symbols in it, and really my job is just to translate it from one language into the other so that it makes more sense and can help you.
Right. Wow. Awesome.
Cool. And it looks like you have...
Yeah, you want to show the audience a little bit?
Yeah, just showing what a chart looks like, and this is the individual charts that I did up for each of you, and then of course there's also the third chart, which is the actual relationship chart. So you can do charts for anything, literally for any moment in time, or for events, or for the birth. All a chart is a snapshot of the heavens at the time, and of course it's also very symbolic. Astronomically it's no longer correct.
And for our viewers out there, before our show, Margaret asked for some particular information. I actually had to go back to my birth certificate to get that. You want to explain what information you asked for us and why?
In order to draw up the chart, I need the time of birth, the date of birth, and the place of birth. And all I do is really basically feed those into the computer. I used to do it by hand, but it takes a lot of time. So it's wonderful to have computer programs, and it generates the chart. Then my work is to interpret that, and that, of course, I do by hand. I don't use computer-generated programs.
Wow, this is cool. You used to do this by hand?
Yes, originally when I started there weren't computer programs. I'm quite a bit older than you two, and I had to do the calculations, and I was appalling at calculations. So a lot of the time I then discovered when I did get a computer programs that they were wrong. So yeah, so I was hugely relieved to get my first computer program.
Cool.
Yeah.
How did you first, get into this field of astrology?
My aunt is an astrologer. She's in her 80s now, and I was just always interested in astrology, and I had a reading many years ago, and then I started studying at an evening class, and it was psychological astrology, and that was really what hooked me, because I wasn't that keen or that interested in predictions, but as soon as I realized the depth that psychological astrology went to, then I just loved it. So I studied then for 6 years in Bristol, and then went to London for another 3 years. So it's an ongoing thing. I'll study till the day I die, which is wonderful. I just love learning.
So can I ask you a question? When you got your first reading, did it resonate you so well that you actually saw some of those things manifest, or you really took that direction and rolled with it and saw things happen as what the insights that they provided you?
Yes, the helpful thing was that it gave me a better understanding of who I was. And it really opened my eyes, and it was just so amazing for me to see that on a piece of paper there seemed to be so much information about me and what makes me tick, basically, and how I approach things. So it really confirmed my interest in it.
That's so cool. I've always been fascinated by planets and stars. I mean, who doesn't, as a child, look up into the sky and, you know, stars are just flickering, and, you know, we're on a planet that's spinning around other planets, and then the whole solar system is flying through the galaxy, and the whole galaxy is flying, and it's just like, since everything has a gravitational pull, and it's all energetically through magnetic fields, there has to be some truth. There has to be. And I don't know much about astrology, but there has to be an effect on us, our consciousness, our minds, because everything's energy. Energy. I don't know really what that means, but I kind of do.
You do. You absolutely do. You know, from your chart, you're an Aquarian, and you have this amazing ability to see the patterns and to see the greater scheme of things. So it's not surprising that you would have an interest. And of course, you're both also a generation which is very gifted. You know, you're much lighter energetically than my generation, certainly. So you have gifts and skills and talents and resources way beyond those which we've developed. So I imagine that you both have an innate understanding of astrology without even needing to study it.
Awesome.
Now, I don't want to get too off track, but on this particular topic of planets and everything, can you give just a short opinion on what you think about the Mayan calendar and December 21st, 2012?
Sure.
The world's not ending.
The world is certainly not ending. The world is changing, but it's been going through these changes for quite a while. We're really in the midst of probably a very peak point in these changes, where we really have more and more choices where we go with it. And there's always the potential, of course, to be expansive or to be restrictive. But I certainly don't think the world is going to end. I think there's a lot of positive things changing in the world. I think the Mayan calendar, none of us are sure the exact date, because of course that's been translated so many times. So I think what's important about it is that we have attributed a particular date. So I think for us as humans on this planet, it has great significance. But the actual changes, we're already in the midst of them.
So how, I've heard oftentimes people say, like the planets are shifting. We're going through a big shift and a lot of changes, and it's affecting certain people, I guess, more than others. Can you elaborate on that and how maybe astrology can help people get through these changes?
Really, for some people, the transits, the planets keep moving. So your chart is is a moment in time, but the planets keep moving, and they land on different parts of your chart, and they wake up different parts of your chart, different aspects of your life. For some people, the transits that are going on now, these big configurations in the sky, which are very powerful, particularly over the next 2 to 3 years, land on very personal points and very important points in the chart. And certainly for anybody going through life transitions, like Saturn return at age 29, and also second Saturn return around age 60, and midlife transits and Chiron return, these transits lock into something that's already pretty important that's happening. And also for some individuals, it locks in with the personal planets, with the sense of identity, with the moon. For all of us, they're really awakening different parts of us, but for some people more than others.
Oh, wow.
Gosh, I love this stuff.
I know, this is really exciting. Well, since our kind of theme on the first Friday of every month is love, dating, and relationships, maybe we could also talk a little bit more about the benefits for just people, even single people, looking for a relationship. I hear so many times, even sometimes people are like, I can't date this person because their sign isn't compatible with mine. What do you think about that? Is there truth to that? Or?
Well, I think the great thing about sun sign astrology is that it really has got a lot of us in touch with our sun sign, which is the core of our identity. It's the part of us that needs to shine. However, it's only one part of us. And so we have a whole chart, we have lots of other planets in it, and compatibility is so much more than just our sun sign. So I think that restricts so much, really, because the reality is that also that relationships are about learning from each other. And so it depends what we define as compatibility. At different points in our lives, we want to learn different things, and so we meet people who mirror back certain things that we're ready to learn about. And also depends where energies are at in terms of resonating with somebody who is very similar energetically wise at that point in time.
Right.
I don't think I can wait anymore. I want to know what's I want to know what's on my chart. I want to hear.
Well,
this is amazing.
We can go ahead and do that if you want, if you're ready.
Yeah,
You're ready?
Yeah, look at this.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Well, maybe what would be helpful is just to say a little bit about what relationship chart work entails, because the first thing I'm really looking at is your individual charts, because of course we're all individuals, and we're individuals in a relationship, but our role is really to keep on our own track, to paddle our own canoe. As somebody said to me many years ago, if we jump into our partner's canoe, then there's a risk it's going to get unbalanced. So it's how to walk alongside each other, side by side. So usually what I would do is I would see both of you individually first and look at your charts and go through your charts with you, and also talk about the particular transits you're going through, because each of you of course are going through your life journey. And then the second stage is a little bit like those old photograph negatives, that used to be put, you could see through them, and it's like putting one negative on top of the other. So it's putting your charts together to see how you both affect each other, and that's really what it looks like. And the point of that is really to see that's what happens at first impact. Whenever we meet somebody else, there's, we have a reaction. We like them, we don't like them, we're comfortable, we're not comfortable, we're attracted to them, we're not. And that's called the synastry, which is that immediate energetic resonation, how we resonate with each other energetically. Now, the next thing then after that, having looked at that, is then what happens when we then get to know somebody and get to know them over a period of time, which is the third entity from the two people, which is the relationship itself. And it's a little bit like, baking a cake. You put chocolate, you put flour in, you mix it together and you get the cake, and you can't really separate the ingredients out, yet it's made up of both. So your composite chart really describes the relationship, which is separate to both of you and yet is created by both of you.
Wow.
And that describes a little bit about the purpose of the relationship, the soul journey of the relationship, really at a deeper level why you're here. And it also describes what's often going on with the relationship, or what's been awakened within the relationship. So it's kind of a step-by-step process.
This is fascinating. We had a lot of steps in a relationship, a lot of
Yes.
milestones, a lot of awakenings. It's not all sunshine and roses and
But
rainbows.
the good thing is
So-
throughout the journey, I feel that we've both grown as individuals and grown together as a couple.
Oh yeah, and this is fascinating. I can't wait to hear what's going on. It's great.
Well, one of the things that might be interesting, just, that one of the first things I kind of look at with couples also is the elemental balance of the planets. So in astrology, we use 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And often with couples, either there's a strong similarity in elements, or there's one element that one person has more than the other, and so you're teaching each other. And the interesting thing with your chart is that, Kelly, you have strong Earth, your Sun and Moon are in Virgo, so and you have Neptune there as well, so you've got pretty strong Earth, whereas Hans, you've only got a transpersonal planet in Earth, so Earth isn't your strongest element. So probably in the relationship, part of what you're learning from Kelly is the Earth function, which is about grounding, about really incarnating on planet Earth, because that's something that you're very good at doing. That kind of, do you find that you're very practical and that you're good at?
Probably. Can you elaborate a little more on what
everything
Earth?
has to be perfect and we have to follow things? Because if that's true, you're on the right
Well,
line.
Virgo is very good at detail. You see, this is where it's interesting.
That's
when you-
true.
Detail.
Yeah,
You
that's
hit
what
it.
annoys me.
Now
the most.
you're-
Because sometimes I just want to
I-
move forward and get things done, and so,
It could also be the difference in men and women. I feel that I could be a little less detailed in certain parts of my life, but I feel like sometimes details really help me build my story or the point I'm trying to get across.
Well, you see, it's how you approach life, and this is the beauty of our differences, that Hans approaches life from looking at the overall pattern. You have
Gosh,
this ability
this
to
is
stand
right
back
on.
and see things
Yeah.
and really see the pattern. Your skill is actually to pull things apart and look at the details. It's almost like taking a watch apart and looking at how it works. So together, can you see how great that is? Because you can both
Yeah.
you both have skills in different areas that you can really work very well together with. Of course, at times there's going to be confusion, misunderstandings, frustration, but
No,
it really
not at all.
gives you a different way of looking at things.
Wow, that's really interesting. So I guess, just how this would help us and maybe other, couples like us is just being aware of these things, and maybe, me knowing he is more of the big picture, so maybe sometimes my details could almost be too much for him, basically.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's really about understanding each other, and a lot of difficulties in relationships are not because people don't love each other, it's because people don't understand what makes the other person tick. And of course, we always come from our own chart, so we assume that the other person also is similar to us, whereas actually their approach is different. And once we really understand each other, and particularly around the emotional realm, because around that's such an important thing, because our emotions are something that are more private, and as we start to get to know each other over a period of time, then that side comes more to light. And if we have an understanding of what nurtures the other person, what also helps the other person to feel safe or unsafe, then it's much easier to understand where they're coming from when they're vulnerable. And really the core of it is also for us to know ourselves, because if we know ourselves, then we can communicate that to our loved one. So for example, when I look at your chart, you've got your moons are in different signs. Your moon is in Virgo. So for you, I imagine that emotional safety, you need to digest emotions, you need to process emotions. Hans has moon in Scorpio. It's a very intense emotional depth that you go to. And your needs are a little bit different, because I imagine you need privacy and to be left alone at times, whereas Hans, you need a depth of emotional connection and understanding that is a little bit different to what Kelly needs. So just in knowing that can help you to kind of meet each other's needs, knowing that if Kelly is upset, she might need a little bit of time to process things. It's not that she's disconnecting from you because she doesn't care. And likewise, you know that Hans does need that reassurance that you love him and that you're there and connected to him.
Oh.
Does that resonate with you?
Sometimes it seems the opposite of that. I mean, just to be honest. Now, what you're saying, I see in a lot of interactions, but sometimes I feel like I need my space, and and she maybe feels I'm disconnected because so.
But maybe overall,
Yeah.
you're kind of referring to, I guess, maybe arguments. Like, I don't like to let things go unsettled for too long. I want to really kind of like the detailed part, like pick it apart and just kind of, really go over each thing, and then it's resolved. But I think is that true? What you're kind of saying is like right after you need time.
Yeah.
Well, you would probably need to analyze things, which is a little bit different. Whereas I think hands with moon in Scorpio, you need to feel safe and you need an emotional depth connection. And if you don't feel safe, then you probably will retreat into yourself, because the trust issue is quite a big one with moon in Scorpio.
Oh, I see that. I see that.
Do you see that?
I do.
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Well.
Yeah.
I think also one of the other differences, of course, with Earth and, going back to the elements, is that, Kelly, you have less water than Hans. Hans has much more water in his chart. And water is a kind of fluidity with the emotional realm. It's kind of being able to dance with that. Whereas for you, it's probably easier to go either into your body or into your head with emotions. So that I imagine if you're feeling a little distressed, you may react in your body. So there's also, you're a much more tactile person, I imagine, wanting to hold hands, wanting to get that reassurance. With hands, it's much more on that emotional. Now, when people are more watery, sometimes also when there's an upset, it's harder to talk about it, because water is a mute sign or mute element. So it may be more difficult to express it, which may be frustrating for you if you want to analyze it.
Oh, well, that is...
It's like if there was if this was like a big nail, you just and it just went way deep down. I don't even see the nail anymore. It's like, yeah.
That
was right on.
It really is. I'm learning so much.
Yeah, this is good.
It's very helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
The great thing you both have, which is really very helpful in a relationship, is you've got your Mercuries in the same element. You've both got Mercury in air. And, as we were saying, sometimes with relationships it's about miscommunication. But you both have this great ability to dance with ideas, to be quite verbal, to, to really explain things and to just do it in quite an easy way. So it means that you're both fairly rational in how you think things through. You kind of think things through in a fairly logical way. So I imagine that must make it quite easy for you to talk about
that's true
things.
Too.
Yeah, definitely.
That is true.
And I think also just in a lot of our creativity type things, and just a lot of our goals, basically we're kind of aligning.
Yeah, I love how, Kelly's one of the first girls that I have been in a relationship for a long time, and I think that longevity stems a lot from my admiration of her ability to, not only, she'll take a job and she'll work so hard and be so dedicated, but if I come up with an idea and I'm like, we can do this, you're so good at, seeing maybe the potential in it and rolling with it, and then we'll collaborate. And we got these big whiteboards and what I call our art loft. So we have, a bedroom and in the living room, it's kind of like we got whiteboards and the brainstorming area, and I just love that about her. So this is definitely true. We really do get along and trying to align like what we're doing in life from a work standpoint, career. That's what Romancing Hawaii is about, what the show is about.
Yes.
This was an idea that just popped up a long time ago. Now this is the premiere of the show, and it's
and along with the help of Hawaii Wellness Directory publisher Lori Chafin, who had the great idea of you coming on the show, because Romancing Hawaii is not only, we'll get into more later in the next show of what that's about, but really just resources for couples in Hawaii. And this is great. I can just see already, just understanding certain things about you that you've told us will really be helpful.
Yeah, I already feel that you've really benefited our lives.
Yeah.
Because, especially some of the things that you said in the beginning, everything nailing on the head, but it's really good to know that the tendencies or behaviors that we have, like that being reflected, is really not a coincidence. Is how I'm feeling about this.
That's great.
That's great,
That's great. I think it's also, it kind of depersonalizes things. You know, when you're talking to a couple about, you know, their Mercury or their Mars or their Moon or whatever, it takes away that kind of heat from feeling, oh my goodness, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm doing it the wrong way, or whatever. And you realize that, goodness, we're made up of all these energies, as you said at the beginning, Hans, and, you know, it's the energies interacting with each other. And so then also you can realize that you can play with them and you can choose to express them in different ways, which can really help in a relationship.
That's true.
And,
so,
yeah.
do you feel that, like, people in relationships, I guess, well, knowing these different things about ourselves and the other person can, I guess, basically can make or break someone in a relationship, depending on how they use it or apply it, or
is there anything on these charts that shows incompatibilities? I'd love to know that, and you know, hit us straight. You know, it'd be great to know. Like, where can you see that, like, our differences could be a problem if we are not aware of them and are not aware of them?
Yeah.
I think
I'd love to know.
I think one of the things probably that's important for you to be aware of is that, Kelly, you're very ambitious in terms of career. And it's not that you're not ambitious, Hans, but I think your priorities might be slightly different. And because those things interlock in particular ways in your chart, I think it's just to be aware of that, you know, and how you manage that. It's a wonderful thing to be ambitious. It's a wonderful thing to have that drive. But it's just that your motivation is slightly different in how you approach career. So that's one of the things I would say. Not that it's a bad thing, but just it's slightly different. I think what we mentioned about emotions, because our emotions is where we go, you know, in the privacy of our home when we close the door. So just to be aware of those different needs is very useful. They're really the kind of core things that I would be aware of. You see, you were born pretty close together within a year of each other, so you have quite a lot of energies that are very similar, so you can really harness those together to work, you know, to move forward. So you're both part of a generation where the whole issue of, you know, belief system, spirituality is so important. You know, it's you want to find your own, you want to really incarnate something, bring it into material form that is different. You know, you're quite a radical generation, so you're the future leaders, and because you're born together, you know, around the same time, that comes into play. There's also different issues, you know, which I know we don't have a lot of time to go into on the show, but you know, around past lives and what your current life, some of your current life goals are, and there's a slight difference. You know, again, it's nothing good or bad, it's just a difference that Hans, for you, you know, I would say that one of the things you're here to learn is how to maintain your independence in relationships. You know, that's very important. And that stems from a past life that's particularly relevant to this one, of holding your power, and yet finding that balance of not needing to over-assert yourself, but really holding your power and your individuality. For you, Kelly, it's I'm just looking at your North Node here, it's a very spiritual life path. It's really almost about giving up and yet maintaining your ambition and your, you know, your drive to be an innovator, but yet also at some level almost handing that over, almost, you know, giving that up. But you're both of your sun signs are in signs that are about being of service. You know, you're both here to serve the greater collective, and that's what you're doing on this radio show. You know, you're doing a lot more than just an entertainment show, which in itself is of great value, but you're also getting information across to people, and that's perfect for your charts.
That's awesome, that's true. And it's funny that you mentioned the thing about the independence, because that is something we're going through. You know, sometimes I could probably be a little...
It's been like a huge issue.
Overpowering, you know, and he's feeling maybe like...
I mean, want to write that down?
I'll remember it. Thanks,
okay.
Thanks. You know, and I mean, that is a really big thing, because in a relationship, you know, it's two people as individuals, and really to have a good relationship, I believe you know, have to be, I guess, you know,
I mean, sometimes I just
by
feel
yourself.
like there's too much. I need, like, where are you? Why are you there? When are you coming home?
Well, is there anything on my chart implying how inquisitive I am? Because I can ask questions. And maybe that's why I love doing this right now. I'm very curious about astrology and charts, and so just in general, I ask a lot of questions. Just
sometimes it's too
for learning, knowing, curiosity.
I think the issue might be more about the whole issue of communication and different relationships to it, that for you, part of your purpose is absolutely to communicate. That's what you're here for, and to communicate in a fairly analytical way. So you're absolutely doing what you need to do. I think for you, Hans, there's a slightly different issue in that there's the issue of communication, there's some issues around it. What communication means to you, how you interpret communication. And it's an area that has a degree of wounding, shall we say, around it. So it's part of what you're here to heal and to learn. So again, that's how you really support and help each other. That, we choose partners that absolutely can confront us with things which at times are a little bit painful, but in doing it in a loving way, then we really realize that this is something maybe we can work on or change, rather than blame the other person, because of course they're just being themselves.
Right.
And anything that triggers us off really is just a warning that there's something in us that is kind of slightly that we need to work on.
So for an example of, is that applicable where to be aware of these things, that if I'm looking at the bigger picture and maybe have some wounding or some communication issues, and Kelly's aware that her purpose is to communicate analytically, but it doesn't always have to be directed on me, for example, is that it's a way, being aware of that could maybe help a relationship, because it is sometimes a fairly big issue, and if we can learn, I'm learning, I really want to learn from this.
Yes.
And let's,
Absolutely, and those are the kind of things which, when I'll work with you together, we can certainly talk about and explore a little bit more. Wonderful. And also talk about what's going on at the moment in terms of transits, because also, when certain transits awaken certain parts of our chart, then certain things are suddenly more alive and feel much more kind of raw. But certainly we can, they're the kind of things that we would explore together, how to work with that as a couple.
Wow, well,
so
thank you
cool.
so much. So how, if other couples in Hawaii would like to reach out to you, maybe come in for their own sessions, what would be the best way for them to find out more information or to contact you?
Well, there's two ways. One is through my website, which is www.astrologypsychological.com, or one is to call me on 808-782-7953, and I would be delighted to talk to them.
Wonderful, and you can also find Margaret's information on HawaiiWellnessMagazine.com, and we just want to thank you so much for coming today. This has just been awesome, and we've learned so much, and it was such an honor to have you on our first show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to meet you both. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you to our listeners too.
Yes, thank you, and until next time.